Goodness, I got a unique story, and that's what we were talking about a minute ago. So, just to kind of give you a background, disclaimer for a couple reasons. One, if I yawn at any point during this, it's not your fault. This is on me because I get up at 3:45 every morning early. So, I'm part of a nationally syndicated radio and television show that airs for 5 hours, and then I leave and drive here and coach tennis the rest of the day. So my weeks are pretty long and drug out, but I love it. If I didn't get up, I'd be bored. So it's a pretty fun life. My coaching background, back to the unique story. I actually played baseball here. I didn't play tennis, so that catches people off guard. I grew up in Gadsden, Glencoe area, and played all the sports. Did the whole baseball, basketball, football, ran track. Played golf, played tennis, but baseball afforded me the opportunity to continue playing at a D1 level, and I wanted to come here. I'd come here as a kid, going to baseball camps, and Rudy Abbott Highway, you know, he was my coach, and I wanted to play for him, and so that just worked out. And then when I got out of college, many student athletes go through this, and Zuzi, by the way, is one of our players, and she'll go through this at some point, but you struggle with what do I do next. Like, I thought I was just going to play baseball the rest of my life. That was kind of my deal. And I found tennis. I played growing up and as a kid, played in tournaments, but not at the level that I found it out of college. Because once you're in the college, it's a team, it's a unit, and it is just it's a great experience. And you're a fraternity. And so I found tennis and started playing all across the region and tournaments, and been on teams, and then I started coaching, and that morphed into more coaching, and then it morphed into a USPTA certification, and that's when it really got real, and I started coaching at clubs, and then I got an opportunity a couple years ago to coach at UAB on the men's side. So I did that, and honestly, I didn't really think at that point that college coaching was what I really wanted to do. But I knew if I didn't try it now, look, I'm 46. I know I look like I'm 26, but I'm 46. And I knew at that point, if I didn't try it, it would be something that I might regret not trying. And so I thought, you know, the way college athletics are going with NIL and transfer portal, is this something I really want to get into, being an old school guy? And jumped into it and loved every second of it. I mean, loved it. And I thought, I can't get enough of this. This is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. And thought, you know, the show's going to end at some point, and I got to find a real job, so this is what I'm going to do. And so we had two really good years at UAB and did some things that were pretty special in the tennis world, especially for them on the men's side. So then I started getting opportunities to do other things, and the women's job came up here. And I thought, you know what, I love that idea. I've always wanted, that was kind of my dream. I'll go back there at some point. Didn't think it would be now, and didn't think it'd be on the women's side, which to our conversation earlier, it is different. And so I thought, you know what, let's do it. I had worked with some of the girls at UAB and loved it, and I thought, you know what, maybe this is where I need to be. And it's so funny. This is something I said maybe as a soundbite. During the interview process, I always said this: I know how to handle, I got daughters, I know how to handle these women, I'll do great. And I just said that because it sounded good, but it's so true. Having daughters has helped me so much through this last 8 to 9 months. And I do feel like, and I've told Zuzi and the girls this, I feel like when I took this job, I inherited 8 new daughters. And so yes, I can be rough on them at times and run them at times and put pressure on them at times, but I do love them to death. And so it has been awesome to be back and coaching, and I see myself, they'll have to run me off. Like, I'm not looking to go anywhere else. I love being back home, Jacksonville. This is so many memories here. My wife and I got married here, and so thankful to be back and honored to do this. So let's talk about college tennis. That's what we really need to be talking about today, to kind of give you an idea of what's going on. Who in here has ever been to a college tennis match? Okay, so you'll know what I'm talking. When did you go? When's the last time you went?
Last year.
Last year, okay. So when most people hear tennis match or college tennis match or I'm going to a tournament, they immediately think of Wimbledon. They immediately think of tradition. They immediately think of exclusive. They think of, hey, we got to be quiet. There's certain rules that we have to go by. College tennis is not that way at all. It is an atmosphere. Probably 10, 12, 15 years ago, they changed a rule because it used to be like that. And they changed it and they said, we want people to be rowdy. We want it to be crazy. We want it to be a college football atmosphere at a tennis match. And so you can yell, you can scream. It's pretty crazy. Like, it can get crazy times. And you've got these players, especially on the boys' side. The girls are not, they're supportive and they cheer and they get loud. But the guys get out, like, the guys will go a little too far sometimes. But that's what makes it fun. It's competition. So if you have any kind of preconceived notion of what you think a tennis match, I would encourage you to go watch one because it can get pretty interesting. The format, so let's talk about format for a minute. So the way we do our matches, and this will be the case, we actually go to Arkansas State on Saturday and we'll play Central Arkansas on Sunday. And the way it works is you have a total of 7 points on the line. And we will play 3 doubles courts, and whoever wins 2 of those 3 courts gets 1 point for your team. And then once that happens, we will go 5-minute break, and we will play 6 singles courts. And each court is 1 point. And so whichever team gets to 4 points first wins the match, okay? So that's the format. So you're looking for 4 points. So if you ever look at tennis scores and you see it's 5-2, 4-3, whatever, it's whoever gets to 4 points wins the match first. And so the ITA, the Intercollegiate Tennis Association, is the governing body for college tennis. So they are the ones that handle the tennis rules, the formats, anything that has to do with college tennis. Then you have the NCAA, which everybody's heard about before, who handles more of the academics and compliance and those type rules. And so those are the 2 governing bodies. If you ever want more information on college tennis, the ITA website is wearecollegetennis.com, and they give you rankings and schedules and rules, and just you'd spend a day in there if you're really interested in it. Our team makeup, so very unique team that I've inherited. I have 8 girls from 8 different countries. You could put me on the spot, Susie. You may have to help me with this. Slovakia, Estonia, Russia, Ukraine, Spain, Finland, Argentina, and Venezuela is represented on our team. Our graduate assistant, did I get all those right? Mm-hmm. Our graduate assistant, listen to this, is a Russian from Israel. So I'm the only American in the bunch. And it has been so awesome to learn, and that's normal in college tennis to have a big percentage of internationals. I'll dig into that in a minute, but that's our team makeup. Day to day for our group. So let's just go day to day for one of our girls, and this happened this morning. We have 6 a.m. workouts. So they get up, they're on the grind. So they get up at 6 a.m. 2 or 3 days a week, depending on how our schedule looks, our match schedule looks. And so then they go shower, eat, go to class, depending on their class load for that day. I don't like to practice them right after class. I want them to have a break, hang out, get lunch, all that. So we normally go around 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then we go for 2.5 hours, 3 hours max, depending on, again, whatever our match schedule is. I'm very particular about the way we do things. Like, she didn't know this, but there was a chance that we were going to play our Sunday match this Friday instead. We were going to have to go to Arkansas the day before, and so I texted our strength and conditioning coach last night, and I said, listen, I still want them to come, because normally I wouldn't have them work out a couple of days before. I still want them to come, but let's go real light on them. And so I don't know if he did that this morning. I'm pretty sure he did, based off the text from our GA. But so then once we're done with practice, they have the rest of the day to do, get dinner and, hang out with friends, hopefully do a lot of homework, stay on top of their studies. And so that's a day in the life of a tennis player at Jacksonville State. They are hard workers, and they have a lot on their plate. And so I don't ever forget that, because it's a grind. A day in the life for me is recruiting and stringing rackets and practice. Like, people ask me all the time, they think I just spend a ton of time on court. I spend 25% of my coaching is on court. The other 75% of it is team meetings, individual meetings, Sometimes we have some individual on-court sessions, but that just depends on where we are in the season. But a lot of recruiting never stops. And so as some of you heard a minute ago, I was on the phone with a German on the way here, and I've got a call with a girl from Venezuela later today. And that just never stops. And I'll jump into that. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So scholarships. This is an interesting thing to know. So there's two different types of scholarships in college, tennis and otherwise. Tennis is a good example because the men and women treat it different. So there's head count or full scholarships, and then there's equivalency scholarships. And so I'm very fortunate. I get 8 full or head count scholarships. So every girl that comes to play for us on scholarship, they get the exact same thing. So there's not any of this, well, how come she gets books and I get tuition? Or I've got tuition, I played good this year, can I get tuition next? I have 8 full scholarships. And so that's what a head count scholarship is. An equivalency scholarship, baseball runs into this as well, is the men's tennis team gets 4.5 scholarships a year. So they have to split. So like you might get books, you might get tuition, you might get meals. And so that's how the equivalency. So they're taking certain money in buckets and putting it to certain players. So they may have, you could go and sign 4 guys on full rides, but then you'd have to have 4 other guys to walk on. Or you can hand them out half and half, however you want to do it. So you got to be a mathematician to get through some of those equivalency sports. Baseball, think about baseball. I think they're the ones, and of course I'm biased because I played baseball, but I think they're the ones that really has it the roughest. And tennis does as well, but on the men's side. They have 25-man rosters. They get 11.7 scholarships. So think about that for a minute. Most everybody on that baseball team is not getting a full ride. Like there may be one guy that is. So the reason for this is Title IX and the proportionate scholarship offers. It doesn't, from what I understand, it doesn't have to be 1-to-1, but it does have to be proportionate and equal. And so when you have 85 scholarships for a football team, you got to give a lot of women's sports full scholarships to cover the proportionate response to that. So that's why we get 8 and the men's team gets 4.5. It's why we have volleyball who probably gets, probably 20 full scholarships. I think golf is equivalent on the men's side, but they head count full on the golf. So it's tricky. I get it easy. If I think you're good enough to play for us and I'm going to offer you, it's the same offer every time. So it's a really good. We also, this is very interesting, and we'll get into NIL as well in this discussion, but we do a thing that nobody really talks about. It's called cost of attendance, where we can give up to this just depends on the school, but the rule is you can give up to, I think it's like right at $6,000 per year per student. We give $1,000 per semester for cost of attendance money. And so this is just extra added on that they can pay any fees with, or their scholarship taxes, or just go to Starbucks. We got girls that take this money and they spend it as quick as they get it. And then we've got some that save it. And some of these larger schools in the Power 5 world, they'll actually, if you did it right, you could pocket, $30,000 by the time you graduated. And that doesn't seem like a ton of money this day and age, but it's better than nothing. And so before NIL and before Austin money, which is a whole different thing, we do that too. We give our kids, Austin was it's a name, that's somebody's name who it was a lawsuit that was won a few years ago, and it's requiring schools to give a certain amount of money. We give $500 per semester for Austin money. So that's another extra set of spending money that they can do whatever they want to with. Let's see. All right, so here's an interesting. So we talked about the equivalency and head count. Do you know that we have 11 women's sports here in Jacksonville and 7 men's sports? So we have 18 sports represented at this university, which is phenomenal. All right, let's dig into recruiting. How do I get these players? This is Most frustrating part and the most fun part of my job, because I get to meet so many people from all over the world. Technology has changed everything. So we can used to, if I wanted to see her play in Slovakia, I'd have to get on a plane. I would go over there. I'd have to justify this expense by jumping around to 3 or 4 tournaments, maybe 2 or 3 countries, and I would just watch tennis for weeks, and I'd be away from my family, and I wouldn't be able to do anything but that. And then we'd have that conversation. There may be an offer, there may be not, and that's the way it went. Now I can watch everything online. Every day I get 3 or 4 videos from players all across the country wanting to know if they can come play for us. Here's my video, here's my stats, here's my tournaments. And some of those are like, you couldn't play for my kid's high school team. And some of it is like, wow, you're really good, like we need to talk. And so technology's changed it all. And so I like to do the video calls because I want to see their reaction. I want to see their facial expressions. I want to see how they're into it. I want to see how much they took the time to actually maybe present a nice, room or video. You can pick up a lot of things by how do you take care of yourself. You can pick up those things at video call. You can't on just a phone call. So I'm really particular on that. Questions I get from recruits are pretty funny, and she was actually a part of one a couple months ago. I get all kinds of questions like, one of the biggest things we need here at Jacksonville is an indoor facility. Like, we do need an indoor facility. And it's one of the things that's preventing us from going to the next level. And because there's a lot of schools that do. There's a lot of schools that we go play that we're much better at from an overall situation standpoint, and they have indoor facilities. And I'm like, if you can do it, why on earth can we not? And so that is one of the questions I get. Now, the good news is we have multi-purpose facilities like this, and we have an Ox gym over at Pete Matthews that we set up nets, and we can put you through a tennis workout. But we also have 1 hour from here is Rome, Georgia, and they have one of the most beautiful indoor facilities on the planet. Like, it is nice, and they give us access to that. And so there are times where I load up the girls. If it's going to rain for 2 or 3 days in a row, or it's going to be cold for 2 or 3 days in a row, I'll load up the girls and we'll drive to Rome, Georgia, and we'll practice for a couple hours. And so, but we do need something here because it's one of the top questions I get all the time. I mean, first thing, how's your indoor facility? And I get it. It makes sense. I would want to practice. These girls that we're recruiting are wanting to play professional tennis. So they want an environment where they can train 24/7, no matter what the weather looks like. And so it makes perfect sense. I combat that by saying, right down the road, I don't tell them it's an hour, right down the road, we've got a great facility that we can use, and we go use it. And then the other thing is the Ox gyms. I had a girl ask me, Susie came to me and she goes, Coach, I don't think you need, this girl was from Turkey. And from time to time, players will ask, can I talk to some of your players? I want to know how the girls behave and act, and do they get along, and all that makes sense. And so this ought to tell you about Zuzi. Zuzi's one of the people I give the number to. I give them their number, and there's another girl on our team that I do too. And I just say, listen, this girl's going to reach out. Just be honest with her. Tell her what's on your mind, what you think. I never really tell them what to say. I just say, answer their questions as honest as you can. And Susie came to me and she goes, Coach, I don't think you should sign this girl. And I said, why? She goes, the first question she asked me was, where do I go shopping? And I thought, yep, and it was funny is I had that feeling. Like, as I was talking to her, I thought, her mind is not on tennis. Like, it's on, where's the big city? Where's, how do I do this? And how do I do that? And there was never a tennis question asked. And so that was a major red flag. Jacksonville, Florida. This is one of my biggest hurdles. People think we're in Jacksonville, Florida, not Jacksonville, Alabama. Like, I have gone through the process with people before, and I always put it in my first text. I make sure and I put, we are in Jacksonville. I spell it out. I don't even take the chance of AL, them thinking that I've put the A there and it needs to be an F. Like, I say Jacksonville, Alabama. And it's so funny. I will go through the process talk to them, explain this, and this gets the language barrier a little bit too. And even then, I will get, now how far are you from the beach? How far are you from, and I'm like, there's no beach. Look, we got the Coosler River. We got, that's it. We got a lake down in Logan Martin, but we don't have the beach. And so that's very frustrating at times. And that's why you've seen us go to this Jack State over the last. But here's a funny thing about that. Like, you're watching any kind of football game, basketball game on ESPN or ESPN Plus where we're represented. And it's still, as hard as we've tried to brand ourselves as Jack's State, if you watch anything on ESPN, they still have our old logos and our old names. And so I saw this one day, it was during football season, and I texted Greg Seitz and I said, can ESPN not even get it right? Like, what's the deal? And he said, we have asked this over and over and over, and they will not change it because JAX is the Jacksonville, Florida airport. That was the reasoning behind it. And I'm like, are they afraid somebody's going to miss a flight? Like, what are we talking about? Doesn't even make any sense. But we can't, it is a true confusion battle that we live through with this whole Jacksonville. And then you have Jackson State, which throws another wrinkle into it. Let's talk about international players. So I just said I got 8 players from 8 different countries. 13% of all college athletes are international student athletes. 60% of those are in tennis. 65% of women's tennis is international student athletes. Why is the biggest question I get from parents. I get questions from parents whose kids are Americans that are wanting to play at Jacksonville or wanting to play in college, and they'll ask, we can't get scholarships because the internationals are getting. What's going on? And the answer is pretty simple. Now, they don't want to hear this, but it's true. The talent pool is larger, okay? So you got to think about that a minute. It's larger. These kids are so bright, so smart. They come over here, they're speaking 2 and 3 different languages. Some of the schooling that they've had coming over here, they're ahead of the game to, like, they're doing stuff in high school that seniors are doing here in college. And that's just the truth. It's amazing. Not only that, they're so independent. Like, most of these girls have been in academy since they were 7, 8 years old and hadn't see their parents 3 or 4 times a year. And so they're so independent. And then hear what I said there. There's no parents to deal with. Like, one of the biggest things in sports and in college sports, particularly today, is parents. Parents get in the way of everything. And so there's some crazy parents out there. And so I don't have to deal with that. If I sign an international, I get phone calls and texts from parents all the time. And it may be from a kid that's not even playing. Like, I haven't even played her. And I think, oh, here it is. There's going to be my first international parent that's mad at me because I'm not playing their kid. And you know what they say? Hey, just want to check in and thank you for what you're doing for my daughter. And I'm like, this is so different. And so, honestly, parents are a part of the issue. So let's talk about any questions there, because I know the international things is a interesting deal altogether. Any questions? Any questions up until this point? No? Okay. Scheduling. Scheduling is one of the most frustrating things that I deal with, and I don't enjoy it at all. We get 5 dates in the fall, which means when I say 5 dates, it can be a tournament where it's 3 days long, but I get 5 dates in the fall, and we play 20 matches in the spring. And so the scheduling challenges for us are the indoor facility. So we're a spring sport that plays from the time we come back to school in January till April. We get a lot of cold weather and rain. And so when you don't have an indoor facility, there's a lot of rescheduling. So what I like to do is in February and January, I like to find schools that have indoor facilities and just go there and just play them there. And I'll even have schools, like I set up yesterday, Sanford University had right down the road, they have a nice indoor facility. And so we're gonna play them and then I've got another school coming from North Carolina to play us there next year. And so like Belmont, Lipscomb, which is in Nashville, they have indoor facilities. So you try to schedule those type things. This weekend when we're in Arkansas, if the weather's not good, we have access to indoor facilities. And so that's what we have to do. It's a challenge. Lights are still a challenge. I mean, we're in 2024 and there's still people that do not have lights. And so that's a challenge. Here's one that's new to me, starting this year. We have no conference schedule. So I want you to think about all these other sports and anything that you've ever thought about. We're in Conference USA and it's so regionally scattered. So we have New Mexico State and Sam Houston and Florida International and Western Kentucky, and we have all these schools that are scattered around. So tennis is not necessarily a moneymaker for the school, so we have to watch our budgets. So I can't justify flying to Sam Houston for one match and coming back. Or I can't justify flying to Florida International and playing one match and coming back. And so they decided you're not going to have a conference schedule. So there's two things that I don't like about it. One, what are we playing for? Like, we have an end of season tournament that we'll play, but we don't have a in season conference championship that we're playing for, which I think stinks. So what you have to do is you have to find teams like Western Kentucky's in our conference, so we'll play them. Middle Tennessee's in our conference, we play them. Kennesaw is coming into our conference next year, so we'll play them. I think eventually we'll get to the point where we have divisions. So you'll have 4 or 5 teams that are relatively close, and that's what they'll play, and then you'll have 4 or 5 teams that are and they'll play, and then we'll all fight it out at the end of the year. The problem is we just added Delaware to the Conference USA. So think about this. So Delaware's up there by themselves hanging out. So even if we did divisions, that doesn't work for anybody. So it's a tricky deal that we're having to deal with. So what I have to do, the bigger problem is in March and April, that's when the conference, everybody else who has a conference schedule, which is most everybody, is playing conference matches. So they don't have dates to play guys like us. And so the American Athletic Conference also doesn't have a conference schedule. So we lean on schools like that to go, hey, can we play y'all at this, like UAB, for instance, is an American, they don't play a conference schedule. So they have the same problems that we have with scheduling. So we take them and go, we'll play you in April, because we can find a match in February, but it's hard for us to find one in April, so we'll play you in April. And so that's just a coaching thing that I have to deal with every day. It's a moving target. Purchasing, like, listen, when you're a head women's coach or head coach of anything at a mid-major, you've got your hands in it all. So like, you're a CEO of all this, and that's what I love about this. Like, I could go spend 12 hours on a court at a club and enjoy life. Like, I could do that, but I love having my hands in all this. So one of the things I'm going through right now, so we're in Adidas school, y'all know that. So I'm going through all the purchases for next year's team. So like, I'm asking them what have y'all sizes changed? And I'm talking to the people that I've signed and said, what's your sizes? And then I've got another scholarship now that I'm trying to sign somebody. I don't know what their sizes are gonna be, but I have to have this turned in now, which is crazy, for them coming into the fall. So that's another thing that is, I like dealing with it for a couple days, because I'm one of these geeks that gets in spreadsheets and figures all that out, and I have a system and like it, but you know, it gets complicated. And so, speaking of complicated, NIL. This has really not hit our sport in the mid-majors yet. When I say mid-majors, and I'll explain a little more detail in a minute, mid-majors are schools like us, not the Power 5 or now Power 4, but it really hasn't hit our sport yet. It's hit our schools to the football and basketball and even baseball, but it's not hitting our sport yet. And a lot of it has to do, and for those of you that, when I say NIL, you don't know what I'm talking about, name, image, and likeness. And so kids getting paid to play sports. It's essentially what it's turned into. What it was supposed to be is you show up and you sign some autographs for me and take some pictures, and we pay you to do that. But what it's turned into is pay for play. And so you have these big collectives, you hear the word collective, and that's these outside organizations that have nothing to do with the school, and they raise all this money, and they essentially find these different things for student athletes to do for money. And so the reason I don't have to deal with it, and tennis doesn't have to deal with it to a large extent, is because they don't know what to do with the international athletes. Because they're on a student visa, the F1 visa, and you're not supposed to be paid for work outside of the campus on a student visa. So that brings its own set of challenges, because in a NCAA rule-driven world, we're supposed to be equal, and we're supposed to give equal opportunities. But what they're not realizing is, because of this student visa, international athletes, they're not actually giving them equal opportunity, because I can't if I had an American, I could send her down to the latest car lot and she could do something there and pay her for her service. But Susie can't do that because she's on an F1 visa. So do you see the issue that they're dealing with? There's a big lawsuit right now in regards to this. I want to say it's called House versus the NCAA. And it is, I'm not talking millions of dollars. There are billions of dollars on the line. It could actually end the NCAA. Like, people don't want to talk about it, but it could. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But I'm all about paying athletes for services, variety of services that they want to do, but it's gotten out of hand, and there's no end in sight. It's pretty scary if you're sitting back and this is your livelihood, what's going on. The other thing is transfer portal. That's a headache within its own self. And I think the kids ought to be given an opportunity to leave a school if they want to. Okay, that's what the transfer portal does. Used to, you could transfer, but you'd have to sit out a year, and your eligibility may be at stake and all that. Now you can just, hey, I don't like it there. I don't like what the coach is doing. I don't like that I thought there was a beach and not a river. I thought, whatever, and they can transfer. And so their boyfriend may transfer, so I'm transferring. I mean, it could be anything. And so what happened is NIL and the transfer portal came along at the same time, and there was nobody policing it. And they just said, we're going to allow you to pay athletes what you want. We're going to allow you to transfer when you want. And so I think if they would have done these things, maybe taken a couple years and figured out NIL, and then took a couple years and figured out we wouldn't be in the shape and mess we're in. But the NCAA, and I say this for most governing bodies, are not really proactive on things. They're reactive, and so then you got the Supreme Court getting involved, and they have a ruling, and all of a sudden, here we go. And it's been very interesting. There are now open and close dates for the portal. So, used to, it was all year round. Whenever you want to transfer, you just go. You don't even have to tell your coach. You can just go to the compliance and go, I want to transfer, and they'd send you a form, and you sign the form, and you're in the portal. And now they have open and close dates. So what they're doing is they're saying, you got to make this decision during this period of time. And that changes the mindset of kids now a little bit, because if somebody comes to me and says, today, and says, I want to get in the portal, it's probably going to affect, let's just talk truthfully, it's probably going to affect how I play them, whether I play them. If their teammates know that she's leaving, then they're not going to like it. And so I think it is a good thing that they have put these things in place. The only caveat to this is, if a coach leaves or you lose your scholarship, you can get into the portal at any time. So if I was to leave tomorrow, if I took another job somewhere, our 8 girls would have 30 days where they could jump in the portal if they wanted to. And that just happened when I got this job. So when Mike Mucci, the old coach, left, they had 30 days that they could jump in the portal. And I had 30 days to convince them not to. So, I didn't recruit any of them, but at that moment I was recruiting them to stay. And And so the transfer portal, and you can transfer as many times as you want. Like, we'll transfer to this school. If I don't like this school, we'll transfer here. I mean, we've seen it on the football field. We see the stories all the time where this quarterback is, he's led this team to so-and-so in 3 different teams. And so luckily, at this point, I haven't had anybody transfer. I look at the portal every day. It's like, I don't know, I get me a cup of coffee and I look into the portal and I see who's jumped in there. And there's a girl yesterday, there's a girl from Penn State that's graduating at the end of this year. And I looked at her stats and I thought, wow, she could come play 1 or 2 for us and that'd be awesome. And so the problem with the portal is, and there's a lot of tampering going on. So you're gonna start hearing this word if you hadn't already. It's kind of like if I have one job, I'm not gonna leave this job until I have the other. And so what's going on in the portal is most of the kids that are jumping into the portal already know where they're going. And so when I say tampering, there's a lot of that going on. So it could be as easy as Susie coming to me and saying, hey, coach, I've got a friend that's playing at Georgia State and she's not happy and she would like to come to Jacksonville. Well, I look at her and go, wow, she can play for us. Like, I'd have her number 3 tomorrow and she'd make our team better. I can't go talk to her until she's jumped in the portal. But she has to make that decision. And so what is going on now with coaches, it's, hey, Susie, I know so-and-so's your friend. I want her here at Jacksonville. Talk to her for me. And that's tampering. And it's against the rules, but it's going on. It's awful what's going on in every sport. And so the transfer portal has its problems too. College sports is in interesting shape right now. And all this starts with football, okay? And when you heard me mention a minute ago, Power 5, and now it's Power 4 because the Pac-12 is no longer, you've got the SEC. When anybody hears you say Power 4, Power 5, they're talking about the ACC, the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12. Those are your biggest conferences. And then there's a group of 5 which we're a part of, and that is your American that I talked about, the UAB's in, Conference USA, Mid-American, Mountain West, and Sun Belt. And so there's 9 big conferences, and those are the ones. Examples of this, and this is what we're talking about traveling. So like, think about USC and UCLA, and this is just the state of college sports, the state of college sports right now. UCLA and USC just left the Pac-12 to come to the Big 10. Now think about this geographically, how that makes 0 sense. And think about, yes, they're gonna make it work running a football schedule that benefits them back and forth across the country, East Coast to West Coast, okay? But the problem is all these other sports. Like there's only a couple of athletic programs in the country making a profit. Just because you're a Power 4, Power 5 school doesn't mean that balance sheet looks good at the end of the year. And so what happens is, you're gonna start to see happen, and why I say it starts and stops with football, is this is gonna be fine for a couple years, but at some point, the money's gonna run out, and what's gonna happen is these Olympic sports like tennis and golf, at these Power 5s, who knows what's gonna happen to them? They may not even, because they can't go across the country to do tennis matches, just like I talked about we can't. And same thing with Stanford and Cal. They go all the way to the Atlantic coast. They're now in the ACC. Makes 0 sense geographically. And so it'll work from a football standpoint. And what you're seeing with football, they've expanded the playoff, and they have also given us this one mid-major spot in the playoff, okay? And so one of these teams from the group of 5, whoever's ranked highest will find a spot in the playoff, in that 12-team playoff. But what you're gonna see and this is not me just throwing something out there and hoping it sticks. This is what's gonna happen. This is what's coming. You're gonna have that happen, and whoever gets in, whether it's Liberty or us or New Mexico State, those were 3 good quality football programs this year. Tulane's another one. They're gonna find their way in the playoff, and they're gonna get hammered. And
The problem is schools and teams want to win championships. That's what we're all about. And so the football bowl series and the FCS, the football championship series, is the two groups that we've had. And the FBS has those 9 conferences, and then everybody else plays for the championship series. So what you're going to see over the next few years after this plays itself out is you're going to see us going back to these mid-majors like us are going to have our own thing because we want to win championships. And we're going to realize, like, what we did this year, just winning a bowl game, first time, was special. But it may be a while before that even happens again because of these things that I'm talking about. Because we don't know what the rest of the bowl games are going to look like because we're doing 12 playoff games now. And so some of those bowl games that people would have gotten into, they're going away. And so it is just an inch. And here's the other thing. Those Power 4 schools, they don't need the NCAA at all. Like, it would not surprise me one bit if one day they go out on their own. And I think that's why we're secure in the group of 5 being under the NCAA umbrella. A lot of people take shots at the NCAA, and I do it too. But the reason the NCAA exists is because we all, as a college university, said we need somebody governing this whole thing. And so we brought the NCAA in. And I think for us, we're not big money makers. Yes, football pays a lot around here, okay? Like, I'm so thankful for football, so thankful for basketball. Baseball's doing a great job. And so they pay for a lot of us Olympic sports. And that goes on for the majority of schools. But they don't pay like these other schools do. So we've done a really good job of managing our budgets to allow these sports to thrive, whether we have success, big time success, and win national championships or not. So I think the mid-majors are actually safe when it comes to that kind of thing. Really, and you asked me this, what are my plans for JSU tennis, JSU women's tennis? I think there's 2 things that needs to happen for us to take a next step. So y'all know too, because this sounds weird. So like the college football rankings, baseball, basketball, what do you hear all the time? Top 25. Who's in the top 25? That's the ranking. For tennis, it's actually top 75. And people are like, 75? So like we finished, last year at UAB, the men's side, we finished 70. And it was the first time that had happened in 33 years or something like that. It was pretty special. And when people hear me brag on that, because it's 70, they're like, 70? You couldn't do any better than 70? Well, it's so competitive because of the international being a part of it. And so to be in the top 75, number one, is very hard to do. And so you got all these schools that up north on the East Coast that have these indoor facilities and can bring in these people that are playing professional tennis. They can come in and make that program successful, a top 75 program successful, where their football team may just be horrible. And so it's such a competitive market. And so right now we're about 120 out of 300, which is not bad. Okay, I think there was like 159 or 160 last year out of 300 teams. And so, and that's another thing. There's not any of this, well, we've got this playoff for here. It's everybody's lumped into one. And so, which also makes it tough. I think, I don't say that, I mean, I truly believe that this university on both the men's and women's side can be in that top 75 within 3 or 4 years. No doubt about it. And if some good things happen, even sooner. We saw it happen at UAB in 3 years. That's what it took. And it took one real ugly year in order to get it where we wanted it. But the beauty of this thing is, all we got to have is an indoor facility. I mean, I know that's a lot to ask because we're talking about $2 or $3 million, and nobody has that laying around. But it would completely change the program. And the other thing is we got to get more people involved. Like, most of the people don't know about the college atmosphere of tennis. Like, we played Alabama A&M a couple weeks ago, and there was a ton of people out there. Showed up, it was awesome. And they were excited about it. They were like, wow, this is a lot of people here. We hadn't had this kind of crowd since I've been here. And I'm like, y'all wait till I go over to the fraternity house and offer beer and pizza later if they'll come. Like, it's going to get rowdy around here. Like that's what I want it to be like. So we got to get more people involved. They don't know when we play. They don't even know. I don't even think the fraternity guys across the street from our courts even know that there's tennis courts over there. So we got to make that happen. We got to get out. We got to do those type of things. And the other thing, you know, I see it on the wall up here. I'm not the greatest big fan of pickleball, but I know that people are transitioning from tennis to pickleball. And so I can either get frustrated with that they're not playing my sport anymore, or I can embrace it. And so what we're doing is every day, Zuzi can vouch for this, every day we're practicing. I hear that god-awful paddle and that ball, and somebody's gotten on our tennis court and they're playing pickleball. And so I can either go over there and say, hey, y'all need to be playing pickleball right here, or I can go over there and say, hey, what if I took one of these tennis courts out of the 12 that we have and converted 3 pickleball courts into it? Would y'all like that? And have I ever had anybody tell me no? No, they get excited. And so what I'm doing is we're about to paint lines on a couple of the tennis courts that are going to be pickleball lines so they can go out there and play. And why I'm doing it is I want to be able to go there, hey, by the way, we play at 2 o'clock. We play tomorrow. Come out, support us. It's got to be a community effort, and I can't sit back. There's a lot of coaches that are like, no, I don't want to have anything to do with pickleball. You're not converting that court. We don't need that. But that's not the way to approach this thing, because I want people out there, because they'll look at that and they'll go, okay, they're serious about supporting what we're doing, so we're going to support what they're doing. It's all a paddle sport, you know, racket sports, and so more community involvement and more, we need, listen, they have done a good job. We're resurfacing our courts right now. They're in horrible shape, and they're resurfacing them. And so when you go by, you're going to see the first 2 that are closest to the graveyard. They're red, so we're painting them red, and they look great, by the way. And we're going to do all of them like that. So they're investing into the program, but we're hoping that an indoor facility is within 5 years away, or I am anyway. And you do that by, I'm about to start teaching clinics and getting kids involved and getting parents and all these things going on. And so it takes a village. Y'all heard that before, and that's what we're looking for. What questions do y'all have? Anything? Anything stand out to y'all? Do you think you'll ever come to a match and watch without receiving credit for it?
Because I was fixing to say, I think that's one of their assignments.
Exactly.
Isn't that one of y'all's assignments to attend? But now I opened up to men's and women's tennis.
You should have, and that's what I was
I
going to say.
I did both, didn't I? Okay. I thought so.
It'll probably have to be a men's match, because we're going on the road about every match, because I knew the resurfacing, and the previous coach had scheduled a bunch of matches away, and I didn't want to be the guy to be like, hey, I'm not coming, sorry, I got to play at home. So I'm holding to that commitment. But next year, we'll do about half and half. And so we'll have some big opportunities to come watch, have some fun. Like, I want to bring food trucks out, and I want to just have kids running everywhere and do camps. Like, we need to be able to, when we're done with a match, spend some time with the kids and let kids hit with the girls and those type of things. All that kind of stuff's coming, and that's how you grow a program. And it takes a lot of work, but it's worth it. It's part of it. I love being back. It's been so good to be back to Jacksonville. And the morning gig's going away at the end of the year, so I can get some sleep finally. So looking forward to that. No questions? I've bored y'all to tears.
It's a lot of information.
It is, and I was afraid to throw that much at you, but it is a lot. And college, I'm telling you, college sports is in a weird place right now. I think it's good, but it's there's a lot of moving targets where people don't even know what's next, what's happening, what ruling. And the NCAA, honestly, is right now, they're kind of scared to make a ruling on anything because they're afraid they're going to get sued.
And see, for us right now, because where I teach and coach, we're on the county line with Georgia, okay, because I teach in Cleveland County. Do y'all know what they have in Georgia now? NIL deals for high school students. There's a kid at Carrollton Central that's 15 that on his NIL deals making about $100,000. He's 15 years old.
When you look, the going rate, honestly, this is funny. It's interesting. the going rate right now for a quarterback in college, a really good quarterback in college on a football team, is $1.5 million. Brock Purdy, who just played in the Super Bowl for the 49ers, made $894,000 last year. Now make that make sense.
What's his name at Texas? Manning?
Manning.
Archie Manning.
Yeah.
It was third string.
Yeah.
He's making 3.2, third string.
It's crazy.
It's because of his name.
It is, for sure.
But so and what I see happening is they're making more than the coaches are.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And my question is, how are those coaches going to be able to push those athletes, male, female, whoever it is, if they're making more? How am I going to make you accountable and push you to where? Because I played ball in college, but I don't know if you can coach like I was coached, and people stay.
Well, you look at the greatest to do it. Sorry if there's Auburn fans in the room, but Nick Saban, the greatest college football coach of all time, and I'm not an Alabama fan, but he's the GOAT, okay? He couldn't make it work in the NFL. Think about that a minute. He tried the NFL. Steve Spurrier, who won a national championship at Florida, done great things at South Carolina, he couldn't cut it in the NFL. And so what's strange about this is right now the NFL, to your point, because it's hard to tell somebody who's making more money than you what to do. And that's what you were having in the NFL. Well, right now that's what's going on in college, and I never thought I'd see the day where the NFL from that standpoint was more stable than college sports. And they are. At least there's a salary cap. Like, there's a salary cap in the NFL. Like, I can only pay a quarterback a certain amount of money. In college, there's no cap. Like, I can pay whatever I want to pay. As long as the collective has got it, he wants to sign a couple autographs, work at the car dealership for a minute, maybe wash a car or two, I can pay him for his services. And
there's no loyalty to the school that he was at or she was at the time of the original NIL. You can go hop and you're still going to get all your money.
And that's why it's the Wild Wild West. It's crazy. It really is crazy.
Because like in Alabama, I assume in Georgia, you're going to have to start having people within your school systems running and having that knowledge of NIL.
Yeah.
Because then you run into are they literally amateur anymore?
Yeah.
If they're getting paid. Does that make sense? So coaching, and the reason why I wanted him to come is there's so much more than just, how long you said you practiced 3 hours max? That's the easy part.
It is.
That is so much the easy, and even in a high school level, the actual coaching part is, to me, and I've been coaching 30 years. I know that's long because most of y'all are, well, all of y'all, but 30 years, the coaching part inside the court, that's easy. It's all that, the logistics side, it's the management side, the CEO side of it. That's the hard part, and that's what people don't get. I'm administrator for our wrestling team, okay? I don't know if y'all know anything about wrestling, but we just had sectionals and state tournament. So my job when we go and travel with wrestling is the coaches go to bed, the players are supposed to be going to bed, but you're talking about 14, 15-year-old boys, okay? And I did it for the girls' team too, but I go and sit out in the hallway and make sure everybody stays in their room. I sit out there from their bed, like they have to be in their rooms at 10. I go out there by 11 and I sit in the hallway from 11 to 5. Because those are somebody else's babies in there. And I know you're grown, all of y'all are grown, but you're still your mom and daddies and your grandmama, you're still those babies. When we traveled with girls, I never thought about this because this is the first time we've had a girls wrestling team. We've had girls that have wrestled, but it's now official, like they'll actually be sanctioned in the state of Alabama next year. But we go and travel and we go and stay in Pelham. The girls' room is straight across from me. Y'all, I didn't sleep most of the night because I was worried about, well, what if somebody knocked on their door and they thought it was me? And they were asleep. I just went and sat in front of their door all night. Because again, I got somebody's baby girl across from us. They're beside the coaches, but the coaches are all males. They can't, there's, some things you can't go into the girls' rooms. Not nowadays, because unfortunately for men, and this is just my opinion, and like I said, I've coached, and I coach track now, so I have boys and girls, but it's different for a female coach than it is a male coach. You can't go in their rooms. Because who's to say, well, I'm not getting any playing time. I'm gonna say that when he was in that room, he did. There's so much aspect on that side that's just you really don't think about.
And Susie can vouch for this, but every meeting that I have, I make sure there's somebody else in the room with me because of these things. And if we're ever in, and like Martina comes to mind because she wanted to meet after a match, and so I said, well, you go down to the lobby. So you have to make sure that there's things because you never know. I mean, people can accuse you of anything, and it's a scary world out there. So you better dot your I's and cross your T's in that world because you'll get in trouble.
Always have a witness. That's the biggest thing. Now I could bust up as a female. I could bust up in the boys' rooms if something were to occur. I mean, if there was something going on, if they were in there fighting, which we've knocked holes in walls before, boys have, and so I had to bust up in there. But the door's open. And so I hollered at somebody else to come on. But you as a male going into a female, it gets a little tricky. Gets a little tricky. But does anybody else have any questions? All right, so y'all's assignment. Y'all ready for y'all's assignment? You got to take a selfie with him, and when I put this when I put the assignment on, you upload the selfie, and you don't do the assignment. Do y'all understand? Everybody else will have to do the assignment, but all y'all have to do is the selfie, because I think y'all gained a lot of information today. Are y'all good with that? All right. What do y'all tell him? Thank you very much.
Y'all. This is fun. It's good.